Welcome to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show, and thank you for being with us. Our topic, leadership, focuses on leaders such as yourselves. We believe that leadership is a skill that can be learned through practice and awareness. It is our hope that our conversation will help you become more reflective when it comes to your own leadership practices and enable you to leave a positive legacy. Our very special guest is Scott Schindler. Scott is a business and a sports leader from New South Wales, Australia. As the CEO of Reinvention, he was recognized as a leading Aussie businessman and keen surfer who won multiple surfing titles. Scott has presided over the growth of a startup business, Reinvention, that began in 2000 with just one single property listing advertised. On his retirement in 2017, Reinvention managed 900,000 properties and $1.125 trillion in real estate across Australia and New Zealand by 5,000 real estate offices and some 11,000 real estate salespeople. Scott is also a highly sought-after public speaker, trainer, and a thought leader within Australia and around the world. As a business mentor and sales trainer, he can back up advice with proven results in his own life. Scott credits his quintessentially Australian identity as a born optimist and clear-cut straight talker as key to his success in this arena. Scotty, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Scotty, you are the success advisor, mentor, and a keynote speaker. And I was wondering if you can share with us, how did you start on that journey?
How did I start on that journey? Well, I sold insurance for 10 years. And through that journey, I wanted to have a bet on myself. So I really wanted to start a company of my own. I wanted to develop product and I wanted to have my own client base and build a success story of my own. So I started in the year 2000 playing around with software and websites, and out of that was born Reinvention, which was a real estate software company.
And one can ask, how do you evaluate success? What is success to you?
Well, I guess everyone has their own definition of success. So that's the funny thing about success. So for me, after, feeling like in the 90s everything owned me, I changed my evaluation of success. And my evaluation of success throughout the 2000s was my ability to be able to have a healthy, wealthy, and wise lifestyle. So something that I could control. And my ultimate definition of success at the end of it was that I could become financially independent and nothing owned me. So my cars didn't own me, my house didn't own me, my business doesn't own me. I own everything, and I was able to create a financial system whereby my investments were able to pay me going forward. So that was my definition of success, and I was able to do that. But everyone has a different definition of success. If you're a sporting person, it's completely different. But for life, my definition was definitely being able to be financially independent.
And when you're working with people, because you are a success mentor, how do you guide them to identify what success is for them?
Well, each person is different, so I can't define success for someone else. They have to define it. So, some people that travel the world and never really have a career and they don't have any responsibilities or obligations, but that's their level of success. They feel they're successful because that's what they do. For me, success was all about, people buying product from me, people engaging with me, people wanting to have me as, for example, their software provider. So now with people, when I'm mentoring on success, it's really up to them. And I do ask them what's their goals, how do they see themselves in 3, 5, and 10 years' time? Who's that person they want to be? And I guess that really is the definition of success. Who they want to be in 10 years' time is also a bit of a definer for success.
And it seems to me that goals can change, right?
I set goals constantly. I have them change constantly because of a couple of reasons. One is obviously if you can't achieve a certain goal, well, you need to get rid of it and reset a new one. But the other thing is opportunities turn up. So you might have a goal of doing something, but this massive opportunity turns up, which is in line with your long-term goals. So your short-term goals just ebb and flow. So goals constantly change. So all the time.
So talking about opportunities, and for someone who definitely has created a lot of opportunities for yourself, what advice do you have for folks who do want to attract great opportunities for their businesses? How can one go about it?
Well, look, what you put out in the universe and what you give comes back. So if you want to create opportunities, you have to be looking for opportunities, obviously. You have to be aware of it. You have to be hunting opportunities all the time and also being really receptive to when they turn up. So opportunities are something that are always out there. They're constantly there looking for someone to come and grab the opportunity, but people have to be looking. If you've got blinkers on, you won't see opportunities. You've got to be looking for opportunities.
How do you look for opportunities? Do you go out network?
Well, when you've defined your goal, when you find your goal, you'll find the opportunity. So once you've defined what you want and you've got a definition of success or a goal that you want to achieve this year, and then you start setting about that and you start talking to people about it, whether it's through networking, through business, through friends, look, all of a sudden, the universe sometimes just lines up and those opportunities are there. But the only reason why those opportunities sometimes turn up, unless it's just damn good luck, is because you've put all your goals out in the universe so people see that and they go, hey, you know what? This would be good. Or what about that? And all of a sudden your brain ticks over and you find those opportunities because you're looking, you're focused on them. And when those opportunities turn up, you can actually go, hey, that is going to fit in with my goals, and you'll go and pursue that. And for someone else who hears and sees the same opportunity, it's not part of their goals. It's not part of who they want to be. So they won't even see it. But you will if it's part of what you want.
So it reminds me on a saying, what you're looking for, it's seeking you, right? It's almost like you're tuning in to whatever you want, and then the universe is bringing it to you because you're so focused on that.
Correct. I mean, it doesn't mean it's easy, but, if you focus on what you want, you could make things happen. And that may change, So all of a sudden, you might end up changing who you want to be because of some adversity in your life or some of those sorts of things that happen that are beyond your control. So you end up reevaluating who you want to be in 5 and 10 years' time. And that does happen. But, definitely you defining who you are and who you want to be at all times helps you find opportunities and define your ultimate success.
And it seems to me you have to be flexible too, right?
Flexible, that's a must, because things won't go exactly to plan. And, but yeah, you definitely got to be flexible, and sometimes your definition of success, if I want to give you an example, could also be a limitation. You might think you're only worthy of a certain level of success. So, sometimes you need to open your mind up and set those goals and be flexible, because you might achieve your goals in the first year and all of a sudden you go, wow, that's crazy. But if that's where you stop, well then, that's all you'll ever achieve. So you have to be flexible, you have to be open-minded, and you have to continue resetting your goals and your definition of success.
What's so interesting about you is that you actually retired at the age of 46. And prior to this conversation, I shared with you that I live in New York City, and thinking about retiring at age 46 is quite it's kind of scary even to think about it. How did you accomplish that? Can you share that with us?
Sure. Well, what I did in my 20s was I started buying investment properties and trying to create some wealth on my own back then. And then I realized that everything owned me and I wanted to start again. So I sold everything except one house. I sold cars, furniture, and a house. And I went back to just one house and I started again. And my goal from then on in was nothing was going to own me ever again. So I was going to make sure I was in control and owned everything, regardless of what it was. Everything had short-term exit strategies, things like that. So it's not like I never bought another car. I did, but, I had all these short-term exit goals. But the other thing I did was I started investing heavily in knowledge, and I started investing, once I started making money, investing heavily income-producing assets. So rather than just spending the money on rewards all the time, one of my definitions of success was being financially independent. In other words, if I stopped work tomorrow, that my income was still coming in from my assets. And that's why I learned to write software, because I could lease the software as a service, which wasn't a term back then, but it is now. So which meant, if I was sick for a day or had a broken leg for 6 weeks, I still had my income coming in from the software I'd written. And when I started making money out of the software, I started putting that into, real estate and property and things like that. So that way, the rent came in from those. And that's what I did. So I started setting up for financial independence. And one goal I have every single year, which hasn't changed, is I try to do something for my financial future every single year. So every single year, what am I doing that's going to set me up to be more financially independent every year? And that's what allowed me to be financially independent and retired early at the age of 46. Was because I had enough income from assets that I don't need to work anymore. Now I'm working because I'm enjoying it and I'm totally financially independent. So any work I do now is for my mental stimulation rather than my need to make money.
It's interesting. So what you're saying to us, it's better if you do investments in knowledge and in other products that can sort of create a financial independence down the road than into things.
Yes. When I left the insurance business after 10 years of selling and teaching and training, I wanted to start my own company, but I had no money. I was starting a company from zero. But I could invest in time, and I could invest in knowledge, and I could invest in product. So I could invest that way. So, investing is not just simply property or shares or the visual things you see. Anyone who's listening to this podcast right now is investing in learning knowledge. They're investing in themselves. And, it's a very cost-effective way to move forward is investing in knowledge, because you can learn while you're driving, you can learn while you're setting up your shop, or you can learn just on a Sunday afternoon sitting around. And this is a form of investment. Knowledge is an investment. So, yeah.
So what advice do you have for entrepreneurs or wannabe entrepreneurs that have fear of starting their own business?
Look, fear is always going to be there. It's never going to stop. And fear of starting a business, it's fear of failure. It's fear of what your friends are going to say. It's fear of all those things. But if you've done a bit of research or you believe something's going to work, it probably will if you work it. I think people fail in business because they focus on, chances are, the wrong things. But if you focus on the things you know will work and ignore the things that aren't working, there's more chance of success. And, it's fear of an embarrassment of failing, but you should never be scared of failing. My first couple of startups didn't work. And I realised that real fast, stopped, but I continued on looking for what was going to work. So starting my own business and being an entrepreneur was not an option. But the first few I didn't go as well as I thought. But I kept on persisting until I found a niche and I found a product that people were responding to. So that was always going to happen. And, it took 2 years. It didn't take 2 months or 2 weeks. It took 2 years for me to hit my strides. Mm-hmm. And then I haven't turned back since.
And what did you do to keep your mind strong and stay away from those, negative thoughts coming in and saying, this is going to fail, this is not going to work? How did you maintain that positive attitude to keep your business going when you possibly had some setbacks?
Well, the truth is how I kept things positive was I'd simply go out and talk to clients and ask them what they wanted and what they thought of the product and what they thought would be better for them, because that was always positive feedback. So that helped me stay focused on what the people who were paying money wanted. Knowing if they wanted the product to be better and were engaged in the product, I could improve the product, which would give me more confidence to keep going and looking for more clients. So it became that cycle of growth and development for new clients coming and attracting those, and for the existing clients to retain and stay with the business. So, yeah, how I stayed focused was by talking to my clients and obviously lots and lots of goal setting. Goal setting is so important in a business, short-term, long-term.
And it seems to me the clients became also sort of someone who would give you feedback so that you can adjust your products or understand where you need to go so that you can satisfy their need.
Yeah, that's right. Part of business judo is leveraging how do you use business to help grow your business. And for me, my clients became my advisors. They became my mastermind alliance to grow the business. So they were getting something in return for sharing their knowledge because they got an improvement to the product. But what I got was a better product, which allowed me to go to the next person and say, hey, I've got a great product. You should buy this. And that's how I grew the business from the ground up. And I'm a self-taught software coder, and that's how I grew the business. I had a product that I thought might work. I went to them, they said, hey, this is great, you know what would be good? And I had no real estate experience and ended up with a real estate software company. So, yeah, it was all because of feedback from real estate agents.
And what's so interesting, you actually had $1.125 trillion, right?
Yeah.
It's now, we're not talking billion, we're talking trillions, right?
It's a crazy figure. $1.125 trillion worth of real estate was in the database when I finished up a year or so ago. And, that's a massive figure. And I remember putting that on the dashboard when it was $100 million worth of properties way back in the early 2000s. It was like $100 million. And then that grew, and all of a sudden it was $1 billion worth of real estate we were managing. And then it was $100 billion. We were like, wow. And then it just grew and grew and grew. And all of a sudden, thankfully, before I'd exited, it had just, it tipped over that $1 trillion worth of real estate we managed. No, that's not all my money. It's just what was in the database and what we managed. And it was an amazing company.
And did you say to yourself, I'm going to have a $1 trillion database, or?
Nope. I had no idea what I was doing when I started. It actually started with just one house that I started selling for a friend, and that grew from one property to the next property to be local agents using the software to, in the end, it was awesome,
So I know that you do a lot of advising now with young entrepreneurs, and actually watched one of your mini podcasts where you talked about FAD. Can you tell us a little bit what that is?
That is, what's your Fischer tracking device? In other words, we can talk about unique selling propositions, and everyone's heard that. But really, you need a way of attracting people to what you do and what you offer. And, so what's a Fischer tracking device? So in the ocean, there's a wharf or there's a shipwreck, there's rocks, all those things have fish around it. They attract fish. And if you want to go fishing, where are you going to go? Well, you're going to go where there's fish. So you're going to go to one of those fish attracting devices to catch fish. But that's just the same in business. So if you start a company or you've got a business or you're looking to become an expert or an influencer somewhere, well, you need a way of having people find you. What's your fish attracting device? What makes you stand out or makes you look like you know what you're doing. What is that Fischer tracking device? And, so when I first started, some of my Fischer tracking devices were the fact that we did websites integrated with all their e-marketing, integrated with all their print solutions. So it became something unique. So in the early 2000s, that was unique. People had websites and there wasn't really the portals there was. So I had some unique things. And Google was only just starting. So another Fischer tracking device I had was I was really good at search engine maximization or optimization. So I could get out there and on Google and I could flood it with everything about Renet, the software product, and everything that agents wanted, which was websites and marketing and so on. So I created lots of Fischer tracking devices via Google, and I learned their algorithms, and that was one of the ways I did it. That was an example of a software company starting. But, if you're a coffee shop, what's your Fischer tracking device? What makes people pick your coffee shop over someone else's coffee shop? If you're a builder, what makes your building company look better than that building company or attracts your kind of buyers? You're looking for a certain kind of buyer, but you've got to have that level of attraction to you and what you offer. So you can call it a unique selling propositions, but a nice way of saying it is Fischer tracking device.
Or in my industry, we say, what's your niche?
You got it. And, just a Fischer tracking device is a nice way to say it. It's just different to the way everyone else gets taught it. And, when people remember things, well, they remember things and can act on things. So it's just, I remember thinking of it years ago when I went to a marina, and in the marina they were talking about Fischer tracking device. And the first thing I thought of was, hey, that's just the same as business. Every business needs it. I've never forgotten it. So, it was something that was given to me from an aquarium of all things, but I use it in business because it's easy for people to remember it. Fischer tracking device. What's your fad?
Very cool. And then also want to talk about goals, because I know that you are a goal master setter. So what happens if we reach a goal and we say at the end of the day, like that goal might not be what I really wanted to do? What advice you have for folks who kind of reach their goal and they feel disappointed with that shiny little goal that they were aiming for so long?
Yeah, well, sometimes when you reach the goals, it's not as shiny as you first thought, right? So, you reach a goal, for example, of owning your home, and you get there and all of a sudden you've paid off the last loan and last payment, and you go, oh, now what? It's just another day, right? So unless you've reset goals and you set micro goals on those goals, sometimes you can get to the end. It's not as shiny as you first thought. As an example of that, I had a goal of always going to the North Shore of Hawaii and watching all the surfing. And I got over there in the first week. All it did was rain. The wind was terrible. It was just having the worst week. But it was still great that I'd achieved the goal. I was really loving being there. And I'm going, man, this is nowhere near as shiny as I thought it was going to be from the brochures, right? But it didn't matter because I set some new goals when I was there. I'd gone, well, what do we do to make this great? So we turned around and little micro goals on top of that. So we went to the other side of the island and we did some snorkeling and, we did things that made it still a great trip. And you know what? The good days did come. All of a sudden the sun came out and the water looked blue and everything was amazing. But, sometimes the goals aren't as shiny, but it's having the micro goals or the new set of goals that make goals. Like I said, you've got to have your 3, 5 and 10-year goals, and the little ones in the middle, the little micro ones, even if they're not as shiny as they were, they still got you to a certain place. So in other words, the moral of the story isn't so much like achieving the goal of going to Hawaii. It was what I did for the 5, 10, 15 years before that allowed me to go and spend an entire month in Hawaii because I could.
So it's a journey along the way that really matters, right?
Yeah, it's all the things you achieve along the way to get to that goal, So if you've got a goal of owning your own house, in other words, you own it, not the bank. It's not about when you get to the end and you make that last payment. Sure, you'll probably sit at home and open a glass of champagne or a cup of tea, whatever you do, and you'll celebrate. But at the end of the day, it's that 5 or 10 years you put into owning that home as fast as you could that's got you to that, which is the most important part of the story, the journey you did and the commitment you made to achieve that. It's about the journey rather than the actual end goal. Because you know what? Now you're going to set a new one. You might go and buy an investment property or you might go and do something else. And, so it's about the journey.
So you've gone through many reinventions, and on this show we talk a lot about the importance of allowing yourself to reinvent yourself many times. Why do you think that reinvention is so important?
Look, reinvention is important, but also recognizing who you are as an individual or a leader within your business or within what you're doing is important too. So I met a lot of successful people in the real estate, as an example, who were really good real estate salespeople, but they also wanted to start their own business, but they were terrible business owners and they recognized that. So they had to reinvent themselves to be a business owner, but rather than trying to be the best business owner, they stayed the best salesperson, hired a business manager to come in and do all the day-to-day business management so they could continue doing what they do best. So they reinvent themselves, for example, from being an employed salesperson to being the business owner and their number one salesperson. and they have to reinvent themselves. And as you grow and change over the years, you get older and more experienced, you start to want to do different things too. So you will constantly reinventing yourself, So as an example, I started making windows. I did that for a year, and then I reinvented myself because I wanted to get into sales. So I had to learn the art of sales. I did that for 10 years, and then I had to reinvent myself to become an entrepreneur. Now I wasn't one, but I wanted to be one, and I actually wanted to reinvent myself. So I started a software company. And now, after 18 years, this is going to be my fourth career, which is I'm reinventing myself as a person that's sharing a story and motivating others to go on and do that as well. So that's, constant reinvention. And during that process, I went from being the salesperson to the software engineer to the business manager, the developer, the motivational speaker. I went through all these different journeys, right? So, that's constantly reinventing all the time.
So what advice do you have for folks that might say, I really want to do this, but my family, my community doesn't support me in moving into that direction?
As far as advice goes for someone that when their family doesn't believe in it, I think that's normal, because often your friends and your family are only going to encourage you up to their level. Okay, so, if you believe in what you're doing, whether that's you want to go and climb Mount Everest or you want to walk around America or you want to ride a bike across Europe somewhere, just because no one else in your family doesn't mean you can't. If you want to start a company on your own or you want to do something that you want to do, well, it's all about you rather than the support of others. You will find that once you make that decision, it becomes a goal and you've actually made the firm decision for that, you'll find supporters and you'll find people who will back you and be a part of your journey, and you don't need family to succeed. It'd be great if they supported you from the beginning, but what will happen is as you start to succeed, they'll go, oh, that's really good. You're doing great. It's more about what you want internally, rather than what everyone else wants. Think about a football player. He might be the first football player in his family that's ever made it to the top level. Well, he still made it, didn't he? Just because his rest of his family thought, no one else in the family's been a good football player, maybe he should study more at school. He was a good football player, or he was a good surfer, or he was a good author, or, he was a good programmer, or whatever. So it's more about what you believe yourself.
And also, who are you surrounding yourself with?
Yeah, and you'll create your own mastermind alliance. You will attract, just like looking for opportunities, you will attract like-minded people to you who want to come along the journey and be a part of whatever you're doing, especially if you're starting to kick some goals, because people want to be part of that journey.
That's true. So are there any traits that a leader needs to have to be a truly successful leader?
The number one thing with leadership is listening and being aware that you're a leader. So once you know that you're a leader, it's much easier then to go, okay, well, I have to actually lead these people and I have to create an environment for them to grow and become who they want to be. And recognizing that you are a leader, it makes it a lot easier. So the recognition of it's the number one thing.
But what I like, though, this is the first time I'm hearing, it's almost taking a responsibility, right? Because you said you recognize that you're a leader and then you lead others, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about taking responsibility, because sometimes teams are successful, sometimes they are not. Do you think that leaders should take, responsibility for that?
Well, yeah, I think as a leader, you do take responsibility and ownership. For example, when I went from being on my own as the startup founder, and then I all of a sudden had a team of 10 people, I had to take responsibility that the company had to continue to grow and achieve. Because if as a small company, if I go broke, I've got not just 10 people that are going to lose their jobs. I've got 10 wives and 20 kids that are, as an analogy, that I'm also responsible for. So you do have to take responsibility for that. The people you have in your team or have in your mastermind alliance that you're leading, that there is some success. And, good leaders recognize that. And it's not about me being necessarily the best leader. And I guess that you become that, but you become the best leader by helping others to achieve their goals and utilize, the direction you want to go in to help them achieve their goals. Now, it doesn't always work because individuals change. They might come and want to be a software programmer. 2 years later, they've decided programming is not for them. They don't want to sit behind a computer anymore. That doesn't mean you're a bad leader. That's just the way it is. But as a good leader, you replace that person, you look for someone else, and you continue leading and growing, in my case, a company and a business and an opportunity for everybody. But yes, responsibility of and understanding the role of a leader is important.
So do you believe that every leader is also a good manager?
Not necessarily, no. Look, sometimes they're both, but a good manager is someone who might be very good at administration and things like that, and that's perfectly fine. But, sometimes a good leader is the person that can get up and motivate everybody and lead by the front, but not necessarily be, if I use a football team in an analogy, the strapper or the physio or whatever. there's someone else that can do that role. So the team manager may not be the best person to kick the ball or run the ball and do those sorts of things. It's the same in business, so, and people recognizing who they are. So good leaders don't have to be good managers, and it's the same in reverse. Good managers don't always make good leaders. It doesn't mean they're not good at their job or good at what they do. These can be completely different. And every now and then you'll find a leader who is a good manager as well. Sometimes you've got to do both because that's just the way it is. You're a leader, and at the moment you don't have a good manager, so you've got to do both. And that's part of that recognition and responsibility.
Yeah, I agree with that. Some jobs do require you to do both. So for the ones that are not, let's say, born leaders, do you think that you can provide them with trainings that they can actually move into a leadership role with more ease?
Yes, I think leaders can be trained, but only if they're open to being trained. If they're going to do a course to become a better leader, or they've gone online to watch videos or listen to podcasts to become a better leader, they will be, because they're open to it. They're learning and they're being a sponge to improving who they are and who they want to be. So, yeah, I think leaders can be taught and trained to lead, and they will observe what worked and didn't work, and they will become better leaders. So I think leadership can be taught 100%. And people become great leaders over time, and it's only experience that makes them become a great leader. Everything they learn from what happens and how they continue to improve that is what makes great leaders. Great leaders aren't necessarily born. In fact, it's rare they're born. I think great leaders evolve and become great leaders over time because of how and what they do.
So you're a speaker, and part of what you do is also tell stories. So my next question is, do you believe that all leaders are also a good storytellers?
Not necessarily. Look, good stories are ways for people to remember things, but they don't necessarily have to be good storytellers. Good leaders are sometimes people who just lead from the front and lead by action. They get in, they get done, and they do, rather than talk and sit back and relax and manage, if you want to call it. But, sometimes good leaders are the action people of the world, and they're not even good storytellers. They're just good leaders because they lead from the front. And some people lead from behind. In other words, they create environments for people to get in and get stuff done, So, yeah, being a good storyteller, I don't think it's that important for a leader. Being a good listener is, rather than a talker, definitely.
Prior to this interview, you and I talked about your passion for surfing. And I was wondering if there is a relationship between surfing and leadership, and also how does surfing support your leadership practice?
Yeah, look, surfing itself is actually a very individual sport. So when you paddle out in the water and you surf, it's actually something you do on your own. So it really doesn't have any relativity to leadership. In fact, it's probably a polar opposite. But, at the same time, I have been the president of the local board riders club. So as a leader of the sport, in the sport sense, you can be a leader, but not on an individual sense. So, I've led the local surfing board riders club, and I'm also ran the region here for Surfing Australia, which is, the pathway that the kids take from being a kid to going towards being a professional. So I've done the leadership in the middle roles as well. But surfing itself, it's almost a polar opposite, which for me was great because it gave me release, somewhere to take a break and just somewhere to focus on myself for a little while. So it actually, even though it was the polar opposite, there's not much I can give advice for. As leadership in surfing, it was great to have the polar opposite so I could break away for a little while and just get time to think.
So when you say about polar opposite, what is that's so opposite from leadership practice?
Well, when you run a business and you're the owner of the business and you're the CEO of a business and you've got people that report to you, you're always being the leader. Every single time you talk to someone or you're talking to the team, you're always a leader. When you go surfing and you get the surfboard, you paddle out in the surf, well, you're on your own. You're not leading anyone other than yourself. So you're really just going out to have some fun or try and improve what you're doing as you're doing it. So there is no leadership when you go for just a free surf. Even if you're competing in surfing, you live and die by your own sword, your own action. There is no leadership as an individual surfer because it's just you. Yeah.
So would you say that surfing gives you that release from having to lead?
Well, no, I do surfing because I really enjoy it. But, when it comes to leadership, it is sometimes in the afternoon when it's been a long day and I go for a surf for 20 minutes or half an hour. It is a release. It is that chance to just go out and break free from all the things I've had to deal with during the day or the week and just go out and be on my own for a little while and just do my own thing. And, that helps you be fresher and clear your mind so you can be a better leader as well. And you need those sort of releases. Some people go for a jog. Some people might go for a ride on the bike. Some people might sit back and read a book. For me, that release, that polar opposite, was actually going in the surf and having a surf.
So that's how you actually bring the balance into your life.
Correct. Yeah, that's one of the ways. Absolutely.
You know, in leadership practice that I was taught, we were always actually taught something which is called holding on and letting go, like leading and then having trust to let go and let other lead. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. As a leader, one thing I did was, let me give you a bit of a background first. So when I was in the insurance business for 10 years, we led, but we also micromanaged, what are you doing this morning and who are you going to talk to and how did it go yesterday and who did you talk to? What can we teach and train? And we really micromanaged down to everybody's, hourly and daily and weekly activities. And then when I got to run my own company, it was completely opposite. So what I did there was I went, no. What I want these people to do is the best people they can be. So what I did was I said, well, what do you want to do? How do you want to do it? And just let them go ahead and do it. So, as a leader, I always hired people that were better than me. And not only that, I always hired people that wanted to go a certain direction. In other words, they wanted to grow and develop as a software designer, or they wanted to grow and develop as a website designer or a salesperson. So I hired them based on where they were going. So as a leader, I let them lead themselves. I encouraged, I motivated, I put financial systems in place and rewards. So developing staff and leading is important.
It's so interesting that you talked about micromanagement. And sometimes when I talk to some leaders who like to micromanage, they say, how can I know that they do a good job if I don't micromanage them? What would you say to them?
That's a good point. Some people feel like they need to have their finger on every single pulse that happens. And, I wanted people to be able to work with or without me. And, if I was away working, I wasn't able to micromanage. I wasn't able to sit there and, use spreadsheets or reports or something like that. Not only that, I wanted people to be able to grow and develop. So that way, when I was away for a week or two on work on a conference somewhere, I knew they were getting in and getting their jobs done. So the way I did it effectively was by reward systems with bonus systems. So I was able to not micromanage, but actually, once a month sit down and go, hey, well done on these 10 jobs you did, and here's your bonus. So I got to see every job that happened. And I knew they were always getting done because they had a reward system to actually get them done. But some people like to micromanage because that's how they feel they're on top of everything. And to be honest with you, some people may actually need micromanaging. But deep down, I think everybody has the ability to be able to do big and great things. And if you let them have that opportunity, you'll actually get better rewards from your leadership style by letting people grow than micromanaging. But I understand the micromanagement, and I understand that it does work. But my preference was to lead, motivate, and encourage people to grow and be rewarded by growing the business that way.
And would you say that folks that might need some micromanagement can be trained to actually manage themselves as well by being sent to different trainings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, seeing is believing. So if someone goes to a session and they learn about letting go and learn about empowering others, then they start to see those rewards, they'll start to gain confidence in themselves and believe that A, they're able to let go, and B, people are able to do the job without being micromanaged. And micromanagement can be a little bit, I call it a bit boring. It's certainly not fun and rewarding. That's the environment that it becomes. Whereas you put in place a rewarding system, a motivating system, an encouragement system, then it's a much better environment. So I believe people that are micromanaging, they also think there's got to be a better way of doing it, but they don't have the confidence to do it, the confidence to let go.
What are your thoughts on micromanagement and a toxic environment? Because some people believe that micromanagement creates a toxic workplace.
Yeah, that was sort of what I was alluding to then, a toxic workplace. But, a toxic workplace can come from any direction. It can come from the bottom up or it can come from the top down. It can come from just within different departments, and it can be toxic for different reasons. I've had those times in my office where things have been toxic and you sit back and go, oh, how do I manage this process? What do I do? And I did a few different things to try and manage that process, and some worked and some didn't. But at the end of the day, I've seen some environments that are very toxic, and I've seen some environments that really need to improve, or they're going to end up being toxic. But micromanagement, I don't think, is the cause of a toxic environment, because some people thrive on it. And if you get employed in an environment where there's lots of micromanagement, you'll know in the first week that that's what it is, and that's the job you've taken up. So, it's never going to really change. If you go to a job got no micromanagement, you'll know that in the first week too. But yeah, I don't think micromanagement creates toxicity in the environment of a workplace, that's for sure. It comes from people, not from the systems or the processes.
And you mentioned that you experienced toxicity in your workplace. How did you deal with that?
Well, I often sat down with the people one-on-one and just had the PDIs, which I always used the term personal development interviews. I didn't have quarterly reviews. I just had personal development interviews because I was always trying to develop individuals. And, I'd sit down with them individually and try and work through it. And then, behind the scenes, I'd be thinking of ways to, toxic environments normally because some people aren't getting along. Something's happened. There's been an interruption. There's been an action. and a reaction. But the reaction hasn't been positive. Obviously, it's been a negative reaction to something or some other environment, the office, that's caused people to be negative. And the toxicity comes because, well, they just don't like each other anymore for a little while. That can happen in sport, that can happen in business, it can happen anywhere. So but when you're the leader of the business, you need to work out a solution, making sure that the team comes together and we all win. And sometimes it was irreparable and other times it was repairable. And how you do that? Well, I did it through what I call PDIs, personal development interviews, and sat down and spoke to people and, tried to stop it at the gate. But sometimes what they say inside the room and what they do when they walk back out can be two different things, and you continually manage that.
In my former workplace, what I had us do is to actually put folks on a work improvement plan. And if it doesn't work out, we essentially terminated them. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, I had a no-fire policy. I never really fired anyone unless they didn't work out the first week or two. Once I decided to hire them, I was there for the long run. In reverse of that, what actually happened was they had to quit. So I'd try and fix the solution. I would try and fix everything, and sometimes literally have these people go back out and try and sort it out. And eventually someone would go, nah, this isn't working for me, I'm out. So in the end, I ended up with the strongest one, I guess, which was, not necessarily a good way of doing it, but I never wanted to fire them. I really wanted people to work it out and come out of that being stronger. But if they didn't come out of it being stronger or they left, well, that was okay too. So, but I really wanted people to grow and get stronger and learn how to handle things rather than just, suck their thumb in the corner and cry about it and try and tell everyone how bad the environment is. Well, I want people to fix the environment. I want people to step up and manage that process to be true leaders themselves rather than sitting there blaming someone because someone said something or someone did something they didn't agree with. And look, 9 times out of 10 that worked, but every now and then I'd have a good employee say, look, I can't do this anymore, I'm out. I'd go, well, okay. I mean, that's fine by me because what I'm trying to do is find the fittest and strongest people to be part of the business that can manage those things that happen from time to time. So I had a no-fire policy, and once they were with us for a little while, that was it. They were there to stay unless they physically left.
That is so interesting because, in New York City, there's some organizations, they say, we hire slow and fire fast. So,
yeah.
So you were complete opposite from it. What is the most difficult part of being a leader, in your opinion?
I guess it's learning to be a leader is probably the most difficult part. Being a leader, for me, was quite enjoyable. And I love leading people and helping and encouraging and motivating. So that was something that somehow or another I evolved into in my 20s when I was running sales teams. I really enjoyed it. So the most difficult part, I think, is developing into being a leader and recognizing that transition from being, a worker, if you want to call it, to a leader, to someone who's managing and someone who's creating things and someone who's making things happen, not just for themselves, but for everyone around them. And you don't have to be the big boss or the big manager to be the most effective leader, by the way. You can lead from the side or you can lead from below. You think about it in sport, for example, you don't have to be the captain of the team to be, one of the most valuable people on the field who's doing some really effective things. And it's the same in business. So you can lead and also be not necessarily the person at the top. So leadership's a very interesting thing when you think about it holistically.
Any thoughts on generosity and leadership?
Generosity is a part of being a leader.
Mm-hmm.
If you're leading a team of 10, you want 10 people to be effective rather than one be effective, which is you. You need 10 people to be effective. So you need to be generous with all the people in your team to teach and train and nurture and invest time into them to being the best people they can be, because that's what makes the people in your team or your company successful.
So you mentioned that you reinvented yourself many times, and I was just wondering if you had a role model or a mentor who sort of guided you through these many reinventions?
Not really. One of the sayings I've lived by is, if it's to be, it's up to me. So I sat down and did a lot of self-reflection and, my goals were very set in concrete. I knew what I wanted to look like as a 45-year-old. I was very clear about that when I went through my 20s and through my 30s. So I just kept on refocusing on that. So every time I had to reinvent myself, it was because I wanted to stay true to what I wanted to be as a grown adult.
So would you say that you mentored yourself through all your changes?
Yeah, I mentored myself. I went online and I got inspiration from lots of things. I read books and I stopped reading books for about 10 years, actually, because business was working and it was more important to continue growing the business towards my goals. So, yeah, I was very much so self-mentored and self-driven and very much so focused on what I was doing.
And what is your leadership style?
So leadership style for me was about letting people do what they wanted to do. So I didn't have office hours in the office, so people could come and go as they pleased. Some people came in early, some people stayed late, but they could literally do whatever they wanted. So I didn't, as I said before, I didn't micromanage anyone. I let them grow into who they wanted to be. Everyone I hired was always hired on the basis that they were better than me at doing their job. So So I need my people to be the best they can be and grow and mature and have their own plans. And I let people do that. So when people came and worked for me, I didn't tell them what they had to do. I didn't have a job description. They knew if they were a website designer, for example, that they built websites. We had clients that needed jobs done. But when staff came in and said, look, I've got a good idea, and they wanted to go and create something new or fresh, well, I let them do that so they could go off and be the best person they could be. And the net result of that was people stayed with the company for a long time. So a lot of people stayed with me for a long time.
You know, it's so funny, actually. In New York now, people are having those, actually exactly what you had, flexible work schedule, unlimited vacation, unlimited sick days, and retention is much better than if you have very structured environment.
Yeah, one of the things I said to my staff was, look, when you go home, I want you to be at home. I want you to be spending time with your family. I don't want you to cross over this work-home thing. And when you come to work, focus on the work for the hours you're there. And if you need to leave early at 3 o'clock and go do something with your kids or want to get your hair done, go for it. Not a problem at all. You can do whatever you like. But I really wanted people not to get them so crossed over. So when you go home, don't open the laptop and do some extra work. You know, I mean, when you come to work, come here and just work and get stuff done. So flexibility is so important. But I also wanted people to be aware that I didn't want them to cross it over, if that makes any sense.
No, absolutely, because what you wanted to teach them is setting boundaries. Because I remember when I used to work for a social agency, I would work day and night. You know, I would work at home, I would work at work, like it was all blended in. So what you wanted to do is set boundaries.
Yeah, you know, so if someone rings up and says, I'm sick today and I want to work from home, I say, no, have the day off. Just sit at home and do what you want. If you want to do some research, go for it. But I want you to have the day off and spend it at home in bed. Or, you know, if my wife's sick and I've got to look after the kids happen, you know, sometimes. Or stay at home with the kids. Spend some quality time with them and don't blur the lines so much. And when you come back to work tomorrow, do work.
So what are your thoughts on empathy? And do you think that being empathetic helps you lead people better?
Empathy, yeah, that's very important. And, you know, sometimes it does fall away because you've focused on other goals and, you know, what you want to achieve personally or as a company. And sometimes empathy does fall away and because there's commitments and time schedules that you've promised. So sometimes you're not as empathetic as you should be. But empathy, yeah, I mean, it all fits in with generosity and empathy. And sometimes, you know, what's the saying that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. So it does fit in together.
And that leads me to my next question, which is how do you stay humble while leading others?
Well, how I stayed humble for me was I actually grew through my people. So I stayed humble because of the fact that it was more about them than it was about me. So I was achieving lots of goals, but it wasn't about me. It was about, and I was acutely aware that without the success and the growth of my team, I was never going to achieve my goals anyway. So it was always about the team and what they were doing. And that didn't mean every day I had something to reward them with, but as much as I could, I would try and encourage them and motivate them to grow and develop. So, and that's, I guess, how I stayed humble.
Any thoughts for women leaders?
I don't care whether it's a male or female, a leader's a leader. I had some really, really good employees that were female, and I had same with males. And I believe they all can be. Knowledge is power, and once you've got that knowledge, you can become a great leader and share that knowledge and grow with others. It doesn't matter what sex or nationality or whatever, you can be a great leader. So it's got nothing to do with male or female.
So female or male, it doesn't make any difference.
I think it's totally irrelevant, your age, your sex, your religion, your race. If you're good at what you do and you're leading other people in the right way, you become a leader. You transition into becoming a leader. If you turn up and just think, well, you know, I'm a leader, regardless of whether you're male or female, it's irrelevant. If you don't turn up and do the right things, you're going to be a terrible leader. If you start thinking negatively, it will be negatively. If you have all those right qualities in the first place as a leader, well, then you'll be a great leader, regardless of all those other factors.
Interesting. And how does curiosity and clarity impacts leadership?
Yeah, well, research and development of yourself is really important. Another saying is, if you're not going forwards, you're going backwards. And if you're not, curious by nature and you're always looking to develop and grow, well, you are going to go backwards. You won't stay a leader because other people get stronger and better and they will become natural leaders anyway. So you always need to be looking at what's next and growing. And look, it's good for mental stimulation regardless. Even if you're the owner of the business, you can't go any further. You are the owner. You still need to be continually growing and developing and be curious about what's next and where else can you go.
And clarity?
Clarity comes from having your own goals and your own principles. So you can be clear about the direction you want to go in. You can be clear about how you want everything to work. And so some clarity around how people fit into that is so important, because if you don't have some clarity of who you are and what the company stands for or what you're leading that part of the business for, you're not going to find the right people to come in and join either the team or the company. So you have to be clear on who you are. You have to be clear on what you're looking for and what you represent. So clarity it has to be there. You can't just be wishy-washy and try and make things work, because you're just going to have the wrong people in your team. But I look at a team as more of a mastermind alliance. So everyone has to have the same clarity within that team that you're leading, or else there's no alliance. There's no mastermind of people moving in the same direction. So you have to have clarity as a leader. It's not even really a question.
And it seems to me what you're saying, you have to bring people on the same page.
Yeah, and if you don't have that clarity, you won't attract the right people to help you go forward in the way you want to go forward.
Oh, that's very interesting. So what you're saying to us, you have to be clear to attract the right people into your life, because if you're confused, then you might get whatever.
You got it. Exactly. When you're clear, everything you talk about, everything you do will be clear when you talk to people. So when you're looking for someone to join the team, and let's say you want to hire an extra person in the team, I'll talk business sense now, and you want to hire a receptionist, then you need to be clear on what the business is. When they come and talk to you about the job, they understand where you are, what you want, what your vision is, and it's clear. So they can go, hey, yeah, this looks like the kind of person I want to work with. Looks like the kind of company I want to join, because they know what they want, they know where they're going, and I can fit into that. Otherwise, I fail to see how you can attract quality people without being clear on what you want and where you want to go.
You know, this actually makes me think, did you always attract the right candidates? Because sometimes people just interview really well, but their level of work will not be up to, to that high standard at which they actually interviewing.
Yeah, sometimes I'd hire people and within the first 2 to 3 days, I'm going, yeah, they said everything right, everything looked good, and they're just not going to cut it. And I had to say, look, sorry. But if they got past that first month, like I said, they were there to stay. I had a no-fire policy. So I then had I was the owner of the company. I'd already now spent money on them. I wanted to get a return on that investment, which was to make sure they could be the best person they could be. But yeah, sometimes people are, got the best applications in the world, and they turn up to the interview and they're really good at doing interviews and everything looks good. They just don't fit. They get there and end up being a square peg, and you just got to deal with it straight away. And if you're a good leader, you'll know instantly within days whether that person's going to be there or not. And if they're not going to be there, as a leader, I just cut ties and said, sorry guys, this person's not going to work out. We need to find another person. It was horrible to do, because this person might have thought they were, but we know straight away, and the team knows it too. Most people can sit there and go, this person is not really aligned with who we all are. So
it's interesting. It's having clarity, but then if you make a mistake, or if you're sort of swayed in a direction that you did not anticipate going, have that clarity to clear the mess, right? And to move past that.
Yeah, it's like weeds in a garden. Sometimes you go, well, this, I put in this plant and it's not working, and it's actually a weed, and I've got to pull it out and I've got to start again,
It's so interesting, because I used to hire a lot of folks, and sometimes I would, just make a bad hiring choice, and I would have to be stuck with them. I couldn't just terminate them because we had a 6-month policy. So it's always an interesting question for me to ask people what they think about.
Yeah, cool.
So what is your mission in life?
My mission in life, when I had my early 20s, was to set myself up financially and to create a family on my own, because I had a pretty mixed up family, and to create opportunities for my kids that I never got. And that was my mission in life. And, that became the drive of mine through my 20s and my 30s and into my 40s. So my mission now has completely changed. It's not the same as what it was, because I've achieved all of that. So right now I am in the process of redefining who I am and what I want to do. And the one thing I do know that I want to do is spend time traveling and sharing the story and encouraging others to go ahead and prosper like I did, And it wasn't easy. There was a lot of work. So I relate to everybody in their efforts. But, I really want people to do it smart. I want people to work smarter, not harder. I want them to learn and ask me questions about what I did, so that way they can implement maybe some of those in their business. They don't have to make them work as hard as I did.
Any final thoughts?
I have a plaque, and I put this on my wall, okay, and it has 3 sayings on it. The first saying is, give a man a fish, feed him for a day, teach a man how to fish, and feed him for a lifetime. The second one is, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And the third one is, what you give comes back tenfold. That's a plaque that I had on my wall since 1999. I think it was March 1999. And it's been on my wall, and I carry it with me, and it just reminds me of my core values. So if I could pass everything back to anyone who's listening to this podcast about leadership, it's, there are three things that drove me, and really not much of it had to do with me. It was more about giving and leading and encouraging others to be the best they could be rather than what I wanted. I knew if I did that, I could do the things I wanted to achieve.
And how can people learn more about you or contact you?
Well, at this stage, I did set up a website of my own last year, scottyschindler.com, or go to LinkedIn. I've been putting a little bit of material on LinkedIn in the last 6 months as well. But at this stage, that's the best two avenues for that. The other thing I've started to be asked for is I'm getting asked to do a bit of keynote speaking. So if people want to engage me or have me come and talk, just reach out and ask, and we can work out how that might work. So talking in front of groups of people at the moment is something I am really enjoying doing, sharing the story and empowering others to continue on their own successful journeys.
And your website again, Scotty, is?
My website is just my name. So Scotty Schindler, SCOTTY, SCHINDLER.com. So scottyschindler.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Scotty, for being a guest on our show.
That's okay. My pleasure.
Our special guest was Scotty Schindler, success advisor, mentor, and a keynote speaker. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Leadership with Biana Kovic Show. Remember that you're all leaders in your own rights, and the impact that you're meant to achieve starts with small acts of kindness, curiosity, and generosity. Please give us a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you again, and until next time.